We've got a charged atmosphere for two rivals in the East Division. It's the Moonshine Throwdown, Marshall and Western Kentucky.
Intercepted by Key, and Key has one man to beat. A nice cut move. Edwards can't get him. Key takes it all the way. A pick six for Devin Key.
Here comes Talik Keaton to the sideline midfield. He's to the 40, gets a block, and here's goal! Touchdown, Marshall!
So please join me in welcoming the 21st head coach in WKU football history, Tyson Helton.
And Marshall's going to finish the year 9-4 and champions of the 2018 Gasparilla Bowl, the sixth consecutive bowl win for the Marshall Thundering Herd.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. I got Trace. I got Steve. We got a pretty cool thing we've been cooking up here over the past few days. We teased it a little bit on Twitter, and tonight on the Moonshine Throwdown podcast, we're going to talk about the project that we have decided to undertake while everybody is trying to quarantine and chill.
Hashtag.
So if you've been on social media like the rest of the world, since there's really nothing else for a lot of folks to do because sports is on hiatus indefinitely, the cool new thing to do is everybody's making a bracket. And, it's March, so let's keep with the March festivities, and we're going to make our own bracket. That's what we've been working on. And, we've got something a little bit unique, and we're going to debut it tonight. We're going to talk about it, and then everything is going to go up over the next couple of days to be able to vote on. And then as the results start coming in, the bracket will shrink until we can finally crown a winner. So what we've done is we took the Marshall Athletic Department and the Western Kentucky Athletic Department, and the guys, Stephen and Trace, were tasked with coming up with what they believe to be the top 16 moments for the entire athletic department across all sports for each respective athletic department since 1990. Now, I know Marshall fans right off the bat, you're going to go, wait a minute. Why stop it or start at 1990? Well, it's simple, really, because if you go back, and this is, of course, you can't take anything away from the football victory in 1971. But any poll that has that in it, that's the winner. So what's the use in creating a poll with that game, with Marshall beating Xavier in 1971? That's going to be the winner. So you put all this hard work in, and it's like, well, we already know who's going to win, so why are we going to run the poll? So we decided to do what we're calling a modern era moments challenge. So the one half of the bracket is all Marshall, the other half of the bracket is all Western Kentucky. So you're going to be voting until you whittle it all down to one Marshall moment and one Western Kentucky moment, and those two are going to go head to head to see which athletic department had the crowning achievement between the two schools since 1990, over the last 30 years. That's a lot that's happened. The cool part, Trace, before we get into this bracket, the cool part about all this is how in-depth you guys started thinking about this, and how out of the box, because right off the bat, people are going to be like, okay, this is littered with football and it's going to be littered with basketball. Yes, it is, but it's also littered with other things. So talk about a little bit of, I don't know, what was your approach? Did you start off like, okay, this is what pops into my head first, so it's got to go down. So talk to me about how you arrived at your top 16 moments, and then we'll get into your first region. Yeah, we even broke it down by region, so it's pretty cool. So how did you get to this top 16 moments? What was the thought process, really?
Yeah, first things first, I want to say I absolutely love stuff like this. I always have. I love doing like polls and Twitter stuff and rankings, and I don't know. I've always loved that. It's not even just sports. It can be anything. I love like ranking stuff and doing things like that. I've always enjoyed that. So this came at a really good time because everybody's sitting at home bored and looking for something to do, and this is definitely right up my alley of stuff I like to do. But as far as the process of thinking about the moments goes, I mean, of course, there's probably out of 16, of course, there's probably 8 or at least half of them you pretty much have to put in there. I mean, it's kind of just like automatic. You have to do it. I mean, a lot of the football ones, of course, some of the basketball, I mean, those have to be in there no matter what you think, And then, but what really gets good is when you start thinking about some of the other sports, like the quote unquote more Olympic type sports. That's where it got, because my knowledge of Olympic sports for college or anything is pretty limited, admittingly. So, I had to kind of think about it and have a little bit of help there, and think about what we wanted to do and everything. But I think I really like the 16 from Marshall that we came up with. I really think they're the best ones. I mean, there's always can be a couple here and there that might have been able to make the list, but I mean, it's just kind of hard to justify taking any of the ones on this list off, in my opinion. So I think it's definitely a really good. The Western Kentucky side of it looks like a really good list as well. Even I don't know as much about some of those moments or most of those moments. But I mean, it's definitely, I think, going to really be good for for Twitter and like the fans to vote and interact with. I think it's going to be really good.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter if you know anything about those moments or not, because let's just say you swap out the Western Kentucky and put in a Marshall in front of any of those achievements. It's pretty impressive. So it's really man, this is going to be a really, really big dogfight, I think, because there are a lot of awesome moments, and we're going to talk about them a little bit in depth. And, they've been seeded, of course. So we're going to go region by region. Marshall has 2 regions. Western Kentucky has 2 regions. I'm going to let Trace start off with his first region. He's going to tell you the name of that. He's going to run through his seeds and how they're matched up. And then I'm going to talk to Steven just about the same thing we talked with Trace, how he arrived at his top 16 moments. I mean, I know Steve, he had a lot more, and it was tough for him to whittle it down, but I want to talk to him and hear his process and stuff. So, Trace, what's the first region? And give us these first 4 matchups, these first 8 moments.
Well, the first region is fittingly named the Moss region, Moss Regional. I mean, I think that's got a nice ring to it. But so the 1 seed in that region is the 1999 Marshall football team. I mean, they're well established, well documented team, and everybody knows how great they were that year. I mean, 13-0 record, MAC champions, finished number 10 in the AP poll. At the FBS level. I mean, that's the peak. I think that's the highest Marshall football has ever been, and might be the highest they ever get to, for all we know. I mean, we just don't know. That's an extremely high bar for a mid-major. So that's the 1 seed. I think that obviously is fitting for the 1 seed caliber. And then it goes up against the 8 seed, which is softball, 2017, winning Conference USA, had a great year, one of the best years maybe that they've ever had, if not the best year they've ever had. I mean, they were great that year. They made a lot of noise, had a lot of success. That team was phenomenal, and they really deserve a spot on this list for sure. And then looking at the 4 seed in the region, we have Randy Moss winning the Biletnikoff Award 97, for the best receiver in college football, and finishing top 4 in the Heisman. He was at the Heisman ceremony, and I mean, just one of the best years that college football's ever seen for a receiver. I mean, I don't think that's hyperbole at all. I think everybody would agree with that. I mean, everybody knows how great Randy Moss was, and that definitely deserves a high spot on here. And it goes up against the 5 seed, which is the 2017-18 men's basketball team, of course, winning the Conference USA tournament championship and then going on to the big dance and winning the first ever conference or the first ever NCAA tournament win in history, defeating 4 seed Wichita State. I mean, just historic stuff. And that's, for me personally, that's my favorite Marshall moment I've ever had as a fan, that whole season, that whole sequence of events. But so that one deserves to be on there for definitely. And then the final, a couple of final matchups in that region. The 3 seed is a very iconic moment, not just in Marshall history, but really in college football history, is when Byron Leftwich was carried down the field by his lineman against Akron in 2002, when he got injured in the first quarter, I believe it was, and then he left, went to the hospital, got x-rays, came back into the game. I mean, it's kind of like a movie. It's kind of like a movie scene. I mean, that's just one of the most iconic images and iconic scenes ever. And for all those people that like to plug about people sitting out and players load managing. Oh, Byron Leftwich is about load managing. Don't go there. So that's a little side story there, but no. And it faces the 6th seed, which is really an interesting time for Marshall. In 2006, whenever the We Are Marshall movie debuted, whenever Marshall hosted UCF that year, I think it was a weeknight game, and that was when Mick G, the producer, and Matthew McConaughey were both there, and they debuted some scenes for the movie. That was such a huge moment for Marshall, not just obviously Marshall football, but Marshall, the university, the community, everything. I mean, the family of the victims of the crash. I mean, just big moment. So that one's on there. And the final matchup of the Moss region happens to be the 2 seed, which is the 1996 FCS National Championship team that finished 15-0 and just defeated everybody, just absolutely dominated everybody they played. I mean, didn't have a close game. I mean, had Randy Moss as a freshman, had Eric Kresser, transfer quarterback, that had a great year. Bob Pruitt's first year as head coach, they were absolutely dominant. For a long time, they were considered the best FCS team of all time. But I think North Dakota State's pretty much got that down now, just saying they win it every year. But, I mean, Marshall's 96 FCS National Championship team was just stacked as all get out, had a lot of NFL talent on it, and that was Marshall's last year as an FCS member. And then it goes up against the 2019 Marshall soccer team. I mean, what a season they had. In my opinion, that was the best team of the entire decade for Marshall Athletics. And, I mean, I don't think it's even close, honestly. I mean, they were absolutely phenomenal. Conference USA regular season and tournament champions. They made it to the Sweet 16 of the CA tournament, beat 4 or 5 ranked teams, beat WVU in the tournament. I mean, just an absolutely stunning season. I mean, it was awesome. So that honestly, that could have been a lot higher on the list, but like, it's just kind of it gets really hard to rank these. I mean, that's what I said. And ranking them so hard. So that's all the matchups in the Moss Regional. I think that's some really good stuff to look at, and I think it's going to be tough for fans to vote on.
Yeah, so you can see it's not just football plays or, basketball plays. We tried to run the gamut here, and Trace did a really good job. So you can see just from this one regional kind of what you're looking at. And we still have another regional for him to explain here in a little bit. But right now, let's bring in Steven. I mean, it's been a while. Steve hasn't been on the show in quite a while. We mentioned last time that we still kind of owe the fans a First Responder Bowl wrap-up, really. I don't know if we'll ever get to that. Sorry, guys.
Spoiler, they won.
You damn sure deserve one. But just like I asked Trace, we in the group text we're talking about creating these things, and what was your process for being able to finally get down to 16 moments? Because I know for a while you had a lot. So talk me through that. How did you finally get to your 16?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. I really just thought my fanhood starting in 2002 when I came to Western as a student, and got entrenched in Bowling Green and the athletics on campus. And from there, I just started learning more about the history, stuff that happened before I got there. And several of these things happened, while I was a student and since I've just been a booster and a fan. But just taking those highlight moments, those moments that you'll never forget. And I had over 20. When I popped this list off, I reached out to a couple friends. Hey, here's my list. What am I missing? Am I missing anything obvious? And then from there, I just had to whittle it down. What meant the least to me as a fan. Just using my opinion. So my list might be different than someone else's, but I think given the time frame from 1990 to current, a good 30-year run. There was a lot to choose from, and there could be a lot more on this if we wanted to open this up and ever make it bigger someday. But this was hard, and I think it's going to be fun. It's going to lead to a lot of good debate and spirited voting, and just rekindle some good memories while we're all quarantined up for the virus. So it should be a fun process to go through the rounds of voting.
Yeah, no doubt. Just imagine if you're a fan, you're a Western fan. and you were born in 1990, of course, which would make you somewhere around 29 or 30, and you lived all of these moments on both of these lists, right? This all happened during your lifetime, and some of these you may not know about, and some of the current students, they may not know some of these things happened, and you're right, it'll be nice for fans of different generations, so to speak, to relive some of those moments and maybe learn a thing or two about things that happened before their time. So without further ado, give me that first region. Who gets to don the name of your inaugural region, and give me those seeded matchups.
Yeah, my first region is going to be the McDaniels region. I think that name kind of speaks for itself in the WKU lore of history and accomplishments. This was kind of the hardest thing for me, was determining my number one overall, who's going to lead off and be the quote unquote favorite. And when it boiled down to was, what's the highest accomplishment you can achieve in your sport? And in my opinion, that's getting a gold medal in the Olympics. In 2012, one of our swimmers did that. Claire Donahue won a gold medal at the London Olympics in the 4x100 relay. Of course, now the swim and dive team is now defunct. That is neither here nor there. But she represented the university, won a gold medal. Huge honor, a lot of publicity for the campus, for the school. So that's my number one matchup, and they're going against number 8, which was in 2009. Orlando Mendez Valdez recorded the first ever triple-double for a WKU Hilltopper basketball player against Troy University. Big accomplishment. He went on to be Sunbelt Player of the Year that year, had a good tournament run for a couple years while he was there. So should be an intriguing matchup, putting an Olympic sport against one of the big three of basketball. So that one should be fun. Then moving on to the 4-5 matchup. At 4, I have the 2012 football team defeating UK at Lexington with the Seminole play, which I think most everyone's going to be pretty familiar with if you wear red. It was really a back and forth game, just a tough game down to the wire. We run a pitch play to Antonio Andrews behind the line, and then he ends up throwing a pass back to K1 Jakes for a touchdown to beat Kentucky in Lexington. So huge game, in-state rival, someone you just always want to beat because they call you little brother. And we took them down, and then we beat them again the next year in Nashville, and they never scheduled us again. So
they took their ball and went home.
Yeah, we're going to Lexington.
They're supposed to be SEC, right? I mean,
they're supposed to be. And they are going to face a very recent team, the 2019 volleyball squad, that I believe finished 30-2 on the season, if I'm not mistaken. They were ranked in the top 20. We hosted an NCAA regional at Diddle, and I got to attend the first game that we played that we hosted against Kennesaw State, and it was just an electric atmosphere. I think there were almost 6,000 people in attendance at Diddle for a volleyball game. I mean, it was amazing. Even if it's the first game you've ever attended, it was just electric in that building. And with as many basketball games as I've attended there, hosting conference tournaments and just big opponents coming to Diddle, that volleyball atmosphere was right up there. I mean, I can't describe it. Me and one of my daughters went, and it's just something that I'll never forget. And I'm sure a lot of fans really enjoyed that season and getting to experience that. So that should be a very fun matchup. I know the football one is near and dear to a lot of people in volleyball, being so recency. You might have that recency bias. Then moving on to the 3-6 matchup. This one is it's very near and dear to my heart because it's actually probably my first true sports experience coming to Western in 2002 from Owensboro. We won the football 1AA national title. That was kind of my introduction to, hey, Western sports. Hey, we won a national title at the level of football that we were playing at the time. That was just exciting as a student to attend the games, go to them, keep up and follow, and then we end up winning it all. So, I was kind of hooked from the get-go And they'll be going against the 6th seed, which is the 2015 football squad, which garnered our first ever top 25 ranking during that 12-2 season with Brandon Dowdy at the helm, just breaking and shattering all kinds of records, leading the nation in yards and touchdowns. Just an unbelievable year. And, coming, 5 years removed from a 26-game losing streak to all of a sudden your top 25 ranked team, just a massive improvement over a short amount of time. And just, now we look back just a few years ago, it feels like, and just, man, remember when, the Jeff Brom days, the high-power days, seems like just yesterday, but we enjoyed it. It's a good time. Then moving on down to the last matchup, the 2-7. Number 2 is it predates my time at Western, but now getting very familiar with the basketball team and just a lot of accomplishments they've had, since the 60s, 70s, into the 90s and early 2000s. This team, the 1993 team, made a Sweet 16 run with Darren Horn on the team, who later became the coach at Western. So, really, really good squad that represented Western very well. And then they'll be going against the 2014 football team, which secured our first victory over a ranked opponent. Just so happens that opponent was Marshall, the other side of this rivalry, the game that spawned the rivalry. And again, like I mentioned earlier, 2010, we just finished losing 26 games in a row. It was awful. It was terrible. Our transition to FBS from in 2008, 2009, didn't win a game. Finally, 2010 broke that. 2012, bowl eligible, and then on up to 2014, defeating a ranked team, and also spawning this rivalry. So kind of a fun time to look back at, and just huge accomplishments. And this wasn't easy to rank, man. I mean, this was hard, and I might not have gotten it right. Feel free to blast me if I got something wrong, but I think this is going to be fun to argue about, talk about, vote, whatever, and see who comes out on top.
Yeah, this is going to be – nobody's got a perfect list because you can't please all the people all the time, believe me. But this is awesome. I mean, like I said, it's not just football. It's not just basketball. You got the Olympics in there, man. You got volleyball in there. I mean, without your number 7 seed, we're not sitting here right now talking about this. I mean, that's just the way it is. You did a fine job, and this is going to be a lot of fun for a lot of folks. And I really hope folks don't let, a time bias come into play. I mean, you see something, you're like, wow, just because it happened in 93, if we happen to make it to the Sweet 16 or went on a Sweet 16 run right now, that'd be pretty daggone impressive. And I don't think that should diminish just because it just so happened in 1993. All right, Trace, we're going to flip back over to the Marshall side of things and get the other regional that you got here, your last 8 moments. Lay them on us. Give me those matchups.
Yeah, much like the first regional, this is going to have some really good matchups as well. This is the Henderson region, the Cam Henderson region. Just an icon beyond words in Marshall lore. Really, I mean, he very, very influential person in college basketball, period, because a lot of people credit him for inventing the zone defense and the fast break. So it's pretty big. But so the 1-8 matchup in this region, the 1 seed is a play that's probably, I would say, always one of the 2 or 3, if not the number 1 most talked about play in Marshall history, which is the Willie Merrick game-winning field goal in 1992 to win the FCS National Championship. I mean, just an iconic play. I mean, everybody any Marshall fan has seen this play. I mean, it's just, I mean, the story about it too is just crazy because it's like this guy wasn't even their kicker until this game, and because there was another suspension or something, I don't even know what the whole story was there, but that was his first college field goal attempt ever, and he drills it to win a national championship. I mean, it doesn't happen like that. I mean, that's like a storybook movie kind of thing, but it was real life. It happened. I mean, it was just awesome. I mean, I would have loved to have been able to have been at that game, but I wasn't quite born at that point. So it It is what it is. But that's showing off my youth there a lot. But no, that's definitely the one seed. No doubt about that. So Merrick's number one seed will be facing the 8th seed, which is a play I vividly remember because it was only last year. John Elmore breaking the Marshall all-time scoring record for men's basketball. And that was a huge moment in the first round there, the CIT, when Marshall went on to win the tournament. And this was really, they only played in that tournament. I mean, I think everybody knows that they only played in that tournament for the record, for him to get that record. And it was a good decision because, I mean, he missed the first semester of his first year, so it's only fair. It's only fair. But no, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, everybody kind of knew it was coming. I mean, they would have probably given him 50 shots if they needed to get him those, however many points he needed. They would have let him shoot as many times as he wanted to shoot it. It kind of would have been like Kobe's last game against the Jazz. They would have just let him shoot as much as he wanted. But thankfully, it didn't come to that. He made it, pretty anticlimactic shot, really. It was just kind of like a fadeaway off the glass plus the foul, and within 10 feet or so. It really wasn't much, but like it meant a lot because, I mean, that record was held for, I believe it was 31 years at that point, and nobody thought, or very few thought, it could actually be broken. So that was great to see. But
did he flop? Can I ask that?
He didn't flop. Go back and watch the tape. So moving on, the 4-5 matchup, the 4 seed, another huge moment for Marshall football history, and college football bowl history, really. The 2001 GMAC Bowl, what stood as the biggest comeback in bowl season history, highest scoring bowl game for a long, long time between Marshall and East Carolina. I mean, everybody knows the story now. Marshall was down 38-8 at halftime. They stormed back in the second half, sent it to overtime, ended up winning the game 64-61, I believe it was, in double overtime. I mean, just what else could you want in a football game? I mean, that's just as epic as it gets. That was really Byron Leftwich's coming out party to the nation. I mean, I think everybody within the MAC or Marshall and, plays stuff like that at the time knew how great he was, but I think that was when the nation found out, all right, this guy's going to make a lot of money playing. This guy's going to be a superstar for a long time. And it was just awesome stuff. I mean, he threw for like almost 600 yards. I mean, led the comeback, just epic stuff. So that's number 4 seed facing the 5 seed, which was a moment that we kind of talked about and I was really unfamiliar with just due to my aforementioned youth, I guess. But it really isn't as much about that as it is. I just not as familiar with Olympic sports like I mentioned before. But this goes back to the 2002 Olympics when Leanne Parsley won a silver medal for skeleton racing. Is that what they call it?
Skeleton. You know what? Okay, so skeleton is basically a head-first luge. So the luge is just a one sled where they lay on their back and they're steering with their legs. You know what I mean? Like on the bobsled course. Well, skeleton is doing that bad boy head first.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah, that's some scary stuff. It is dangerous. It's very dangerous because these folks can get up to 80, 90 plus miles an hour flying down that course head first. And it should be noted that at the 2002 games in Salt Lake City, of course, this is Winter Olympics. That was the year that skeleton returned to the Olympics. It hadn't been in the Olympics for I don't know the exact date, but it was a long time. It was like 50, 60 years or something like that. I don't quote me on that, but it was a long, long time. So to win a silver medal on the return of something that had not been an Olympic sport for a long time is a pretty cool deal. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big moment right there. I mean, she, of course, Marshall, alum and all that. And I believe she's from Logan, West Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. I think I looked that up. So, I mean, that's awesome stuff. I mean, that stuff you just don't see very often. So that definitely deserves a spot on the list, no doubt about it. Then going down to the 3-6 matchup, the 3 seed, another big football moment here. I mean, this one had to be on the list. Originally, when we made this list, it actually was not on the list. And then I texted you about it, and I was like, this has to make it, right? And we were both in agreement it has to make it, which is when football went on the road and beat number 6 Kansas State 27-20 in 2003. I still remember that vividly. I mean, it was just an amazing moment for the program. I mean, to beat a team of that caliber on the road and to snap their 41-game home non-conference winning streak. I mean, that stuff is huge. That's as big as it gets really for a Group of 5 program to go on the road and get a big win like that. I mean, that was when Kansas State was a phenomenal football team and a program that was just consistently great. I mean, they had Darren Sproles that year. Marshall held him in check. Kansas State won the Big 12 that year. Marshall still managed to beat them. It was awesome. And then, of course, that was with Marshall's backup quarterback, Graham Goetner, filling in for Stan Hill, who had got hurt a couple weeks before that. So Marshall didn't even have their starting quarterback in that game, and they still managed to win, even though Kansas State had their backup as well, but it offset because both teams were playing with backups. But, I mean, just a big, big win. I mean, everybody knows how big that was. I mean, I think that's the last ranked win Marshall has, actually, in football. So, I mean, that's a long time. So, great, great win. Going up against the 6th seed, which is a record-setting moment from the 2014 season. This was when Rakeem Cato broke Russell Wilson's FBS record for consecutive games with a touchdown pass. He did it against FIU on the road. He had I think it was like a 1-yard touchdown pass to Ryan Urachek, who was a freshman at the time. This was Cato. He broke the record. He tied it at 38 games a week before, and then this broke it at 39 straight games with a touchdown pass. And he ended up with 46 for his career, and that's still the FBS record, and it's going to take a lot to break that. I mean, it's basically going to take a guy it will basically take a guy doing it for 4 straight years without missing any time, you can have off games easily, but even when he had off games, he still at least threw 1 touchdown. I mean, It's kind of remarkable stuff to have a record of that magnitude. So that's the 6th seed in that region. And then the final matchup in the Henderson region is the 2 seed against the 7 seed, 2 seed being another one of the 2 or 3 also biggest plays in Marshall history, the most iconic plays. The game-winning touchdown in the 1999 MAC championship game, Chad Pennington to Eric Pinkerton. I mean, we know what it is at this point, well documented. I mean, it's just one of the most just famous plays in Marshall history. I mean, it never gets old watching it. I mean, it was just a dramatic. I mean, that kept their undefeated season alive. That kept them, if they would have lost that game, they wouldn't have been in a bowl game. And they would have been like 11-1 at that point, I think, and they still would not have been in a bowl game because the MAC only had 1 bowl tie at that point. I mean, that was so much riding on that. That really cemented Chad Pennington's legacy as the greatest Marshall quarterback of all time, and I still think he has that mantra. That cemented it right there, in my opinion. I mean, I think that was Pinkerton's first career touchdown, I think, too. I mean, just like really, like that's sort of a lot like Merrick's field goal, his first career field goal, and this was Pinkerton's first career touchdown, and like they meant the world to Marshall football in the program, how big the moments were. So like it's just crazy stuff. So that's the 2 seed, 7 seed being a more recent play from the last decade. This play isn't as much about the significance of it as it is just what an amazing play it was. And this was the Aaron Dobson catch of the year from 2011 against East Carolina. It went viral. It was all over YouTube. It's got like the video of it on YouTube has like 2 or 3 million views. I mean, it really got Aaron Dobson on the map. He ended up being a 2nd-round draft pick in 2013 to the New England Patriots. Bounced around the league for a few years, but I mean, it was. I was at that game, and I remember like it was yesterday, just watching it play out, like not knowing really if it was a catch or not knowing what was going on because I was on the opposite end of the stadium. And then when they showed it back on the big board, everybody was just blown away, just absolutely stunned that he made a catch like that. I mean, you can't even explain it. I mean, there's so many elements that goes into it. You have to just look it up. Aaron Dobson, the catch, because that's really the best I can tell you because it's so hard to explain because it was that unbelievable of a catch. And that was the number 2 play of the year on SportsCenter for 2011. And it was obviously the catch of the year just because it was the highest ranked of all the plays that they had from that year. I mean, just unbelievable play. And like, it really, I mean, as far as what it meant for the team, they needed that play. And that win over East Carolina that day in overtime got them to bowl eligibility. They won a bowl that year. That was Doc's 2nd year. So, I mean, just epic stuff. So that's the number 7 seed in the region.
All awesome plays. There should be some folks that really have to ponder, which play is better or which moment is better. These are not just cut and dry. I don't think just because something's necessarily seated at number 3 makes it better than the number 6. I mean, when you get down to 16, they're all great, So this is going to be so cool to watch play out. And one more note before I kick back over to Steven and get his last regional. I looked up the history of skeleton in the Winter Olympics while you guys were talking. It debuted in 1928, and they did it for the 28 Olympiad, and then it disappeared for 20 years and made a return in the 48 Olympiad, and then it was gone until 2002. So that long between skeleton at the Winter Olympics. And since 2002, it has remained. So 2010, 2014, 2018, and, you might as well account that it'll be there in 2022 or whenever the Winter Olympics makes its way back around. But, you ought to, YouTube that, man. That is, I don't know if I got the guts to do some skeleton because that looks pretty scary. But anyway. Pretty cool all the way around. Steve, we got one more region. We got 4 more matchups. We got 8 more moments. Lay it on me. Give me the final region and these final 4 matchups.
Yeah, this was kind of my toss-up to who was going to be my I kind of had to coin flip this. Who's going to be my overall number 1? This lost the coin flip. It also predates my fanhood, but I know that our women's basketball team has a lot of historical success, even up till recent times. They've always been good, always had good coaches, good players. But in 1992, our women's basketball team finished the national runner-up in the NCAA tournament. I mean, I couldn't imagine if that happened today in either basketball, men's or women's, just how much support the community would have. And I'm sure it was the same back then. This is a basketball crazy state and town, but just a huge accomplishment. And as I got to looking into this more, this just kind of blows my mind. The run that they had from 85 till 90, 85 to 95. They went 85 Final Four, 86 Final Four, 87 first round, 88 first round, 89 first round, Sweet 16 in 91, runner-up in 92, Sweet 16 in 93, Sweet 16 in 95. I mean, this was just kind of a dominant team in a dominant era of WKU basketball, and that's just amazing. It blows my mind. I hope it happens again real soon, men's or women's, actually, because that's just amazing to be the runner-up. They end up losing to Stanford 62-78, but man, what an incredible season to finish the runner-up, second best in the nation. Huge season for them. They're going up against the 8 seed. Recent team, the 2018 men's basketball team that ended up making an NIT run after they didn't secure an at-large bid, which to this day I'll tell you they should have had an at-large bid, but that's here nor there. But kind of an unforgettable season. End up winning a couple home games that weren't expected. Went to USC and won a game. Then end up losing to Utah in the NIT before the Final Four. So very good basketball team. So that 1-8 matchup should be very, 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 very interesting. The 4-5 matchup in 2019. Jake Sanford of the baseball team actually hit for the Triple Crown, which is a very, very, just kind of a rare occurrence, kind of very prestigious. Player of the Year in Conference USA. He just busted out, had a coming out party, ended up getting drafted to the Yankees following his season. He just had a great season. And then he's going against a 5 seed. The 2008 men's basketball team defeated number 3 Louisville. This was a game played on the neutral site in Nashville. In-state team, a team that we've played pretty regularly, especially at the time. It was a yearly series. They're ranked number 3 in the nation. Of course, our team went on. The 2008 team went on to make the NCAA tournament themselves, but we weren't ranked. But, beating a top 5 team, that's huge, especially Louisville at the time was, a national favorite. So that should be, a very good matchup. Both of those are just huge moments in our history for the school. The 3-6 matchup, this one will kind of sound familiar. The 2001 men's basketball team defeated UK at Rupp Arena. This was the year before I came to Western, but still I had started following the basketball team before I came to Western because I had friends that came to Western the year before I did. We went to Rupp Arena, beat UK, and then guess what? They never scheduled us again.
You mean they took their ball and went home again?
Stop me if you've heard it before. They never scheduled us again. We just want to play some basketball. That's all we want to do. But now they'll schedule Northern Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky and West Virginia Tech, but not Western Kentucky. So It is third facing the number 6 seed in 2015. Softball player Miranda Kramer had just a historic season for the softball team, was a National Player of the Year candidate, led the nation in strikeouts. Huge season, had a lot of success, ended up making the tournament. Unfortunately, I believe she developed a blister on her throwing hand in our last game. We ended up losing the game. She, kind of got roughed up a little bit, but still just a historic season for her. Had a very low ERA, led the nation in strikeouts, was one of the 26 finalists for the National Player of the Year award. So pretty big deal for our softball team for the conference. Then the 2-7 matchup, 2008, our men's basketball team had a Sweet 16 run. Everybody's familiar with the Ty Rogers shot. Ty Rogers does in Drake. We've all seen the highlight. If you're a Western fan, you've seen the highlight 20 million times. Brazelton brings the ball up, kicks it back to Rogers, who knocks in about a 30-plus foot shot. It goes crazy, dog pile. And, then we end up going on and playing San Diego in the next round, making the Sweet 16 before losing to UCLA that had Russell Westbrook and Kevin Love. So very, very, very fun season, exciting run. It's just crazy to think it's been 12 years now. I can tell you exactly where I was, what I was doing when he hit that shot. And it's crazy. Like it was just yesterday. But he's going against the number 7, which is in 2008 also. Men's basketball, Courtney Lee tied the school scoring record, tying Jim McDaniels, which is just kind of crazy because they're both probably the 2 greatest men's basketball players that have ever laced them up at this point for Western Kentucky. And they ended up finishing with the exact same amount of points. Not one less, not one more. Tied him exactly, which is, I think, kind of a fitting kind of end for Courtney Lee because he always kind of wanted to get to that point, and he just tied him. Didn't go over. I don't know if it was intentionally or not, but he tied the record, and it still stands today, even though Tavion Hollingsworth will have a chance to potentially break it this coming season if he has a great season. But man, just kind of what I feel like is a loaded bracket on the WKU side. It's going to be tough. It's going to be fun all the way from top to bottom. Really, I think anybody could come out of this. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is pretty freaking awesome. I mean, as fans, we tend to concentrate on the negative sometimes and how we're not winning as much as we might like. But when you stop and take some stock, and yeah, this is over 3 decades, but so what, man? Some of these accomplishments, gold medals, silver medals, I mean, making it to the upper echelon in your discipline, championships, individual awards. This is pretty amazing for 2 relatively small schools in 2 relatively speaking smaller cities. Man, what these are a lot of iconic moments. And, it's pretty cool to think about, you say, I remember where I was when this happened, and I remember where I was when that happened. And that's what it's all about. These things stick with you. And I think that's why a lot of folks are going stir crazy right now without sports, is because you connect with it on such a deep personal level that sticks with you. And you're thinking, man, this was 12 years ago. And it seemed like I watched that game happen for real, like live, yesterday. So, vote with your heart. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have brand loyalty to your school, but it's your vote. You do whatever you want to with it. But I think our fans, our followers, anybody else really that wants to vote and chime in on these things, you feel free to hit the guys up with how well they did putting their list together, where they went wrong, what they totally forgot about. But by all means, vote and share the polls, because it'd be really cool if this thing got thousands and thousands of responses throughout its bracket run. One thing I want to talk about, though, I was kicking around an idea of potentially having a prize, a one winner prize, one winner take all. So what I'll do is, along with putting up each individual poll that you can vote on, Trace has put together a really sweet bracket that we're all looking at. We all have. That you can download the photo or whatever, or just print it up, fill it out, and snap a picture of it and upload it all the way down to the winner. And what I'll do is, of those folks who happen to get the winner right, I'll have the guys, maybe we'll figure out a way, and we'll come up with one of them. Of all the folks that pick the right one, we'll pick one of those people, and I'll send you a Moonshine Throwdown shirt just for playing along and winning the bracket. Now, you got to fill your bracket out and have it back to us, tweet it at me, whatever, with your name written on it, your handle, completely filled out before the first matchups are completed. Once the first matchups are completed, contest is closed. So if one person if one person fills out a bracket and they're wrong, well, nobody's getting a shirt. So print them up, fill them out. What do you got, Trace?
I was just going to say real quick about the printing them out thing, a little disclaimer on that. It probably won't print out very well. It's probably because the formatting is kind of screwed up on it, but just try however, but I don't know how much success you'll have printing it out.
The important part will print out, because everything they've got to write on will print out fine. And if you need to read it, you can just bring the photo up on your phone. So it's not a big deal, but everywhere you need to pick a winner prints up just fine. I'm holding it right here. It's perfectly fine. So there's your incentive to play along. Print your bracket up, whatever, take a picture, tweet us the winner. I want to see completed brackets, put your handle on it. Of all the people that happen to pick the winner, we'll pick one. We'll send you a Moonshine Throwdown shirt in vintage green or vintage red, whichever you choose. So, guys, I know it's super late. We got a lot of work to do. I know some of us have actual work because they are essential employees through this quarantine and chill. So we got some quick relaxing and then back at it hardcore the next day. So if you got any final words, let's throw them out. Steve, I'll start with you because I know you've got a long day ahead. You got any final words, final thoughts? Toss them out.
Yeah, man, this was a lot of fun, and it went from idea to talking about to fruition kind of real quick. But I still think it's going to be a really fun exercise. I know a lot of other accounts have kind of done similar projects, just trying to revitalize and keep everybody engaged to sports and something we all hold near and dear, our schools that we support and love, and kind of miss that bond that we all had. We kind of got cheated out of March Madness, so we'll create our own March Madness. Going into April, we'll figure out who the biggest moment is for the Moonshine Throwdown schools, and I think both sides of the rivalry can also learn more about the other side, because there's stuff that I heard Trace talk about that I wasn't familiar with, and I'm sure that there's stuff that I talk about that he wasn't familiar with. Both of these schools and programs are just very storied and very accomplished in multiple sports, not just football, basketball, what we're known for, but just across the board. There's a lot of good athletes that have come through our schools and programs. So it's a fun exercise. It keeps us engaged, keeps us occupied, our mind off of stuff that's going on. And it's just fun to learn about and really just have a fun time on Twitter, and maybe some debate, maybe some arguing. I'm here for it. At me.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, history can be fun when you get into this stuff. Like, wow, I didn't know that, Western had a gold medal swimmer. That's pretty cool. It makes you kind of want to dig into that a little bit more. Maybe you didn't know that Marshall had an alum that was a silver medal skeletonist. I don't know what they're called. Skeleton racer. Trace, what do you got for some final thoughts this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said before, I love this kind of stuff. Like, I'm a big time nerd when it comes to this kind of stuff, like rankings and lists and brackets, and I've always just been into that. And this is a really, really intriguing one. And I mean, it's like Steven said, I mean, there's a lot of moments, both sides, that I'm sure that I know for a fact that I didn't know about, and that he didn't know about either. So, like, there's a lot of stuff on here that, like, people, and I'm sure that's going to carry over to Twitter too. It's like, I'm sure people wouldn't realize, well, that's a pretty big deal right there, even though I didn't know it. So I might have to vote for that one. So, like, I'm sure it's going to create some really good debates and arguments. And, like he said, I'm there for that for sure. But, there's a few honorable mentions I kind of wanted to throw in there that's kind of more football based. But, like, I was thinking about these moments, but I thought there were some other ones that had to be in over these. But one of them would be the win when Marshall beat Clemson in 1999 in Death Valley in the season opener. I mean, that was a humongous win at the time. I mean, just a massive win. I mean, Clemson was 6-6 that year and everything. But like, I mean, that's 80,000 people in Death Valley in the season opener, and you go there and win. I mean, that's a huge deal. And then also from the year before that, when Marshall beat South Carolina on a game-winning field goal from Hurricanes' own Billy Malashevitz. That was pretty awesome. I mean, even though South Carolina was horrible that year, but I mean, it's still a big win against an SEC team. And then another moment that actually started out in my list, but I had to replace it with another one, was when Byron Leftwich got drafted 7th overall in the NFL draft in 2003. I mean, that's a really high ranking for a Group of 5 team to get a player ranked that high or drafted that high. I mean, that just doesn't happen. I don't know if Marshall. Doesn't seem like they'll ever have a player that's that highly drafted right now anytime soon. I mean, that's a really high bar. He was the first quarterback taken, I believe. I mean, that's pretty big stuff. But that one I had to put the Kansas State win on there just because I feel like that's more nationally significant and more program based. I mean, yeah, Leftwich was obviously part of the program, but like that was more just an individual accomplishment, which is great. But like still, but I mean, those three all of those three that I said right there could have been in the list, but I think I'm pretty happy, pretty solidified with what we ended up with. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how all this plays out. I have my own thoughts and opinions about what I think will advance and what won't advance, but we'll see if the Twitter world follows my thinking as well.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is you're not voting on the team per se. Keep in mind that this is the moment. So when you talk about, the 99 football team, you're talking about the moment they secured the win to go 13-0 and to ultimately attain a number 10 ranking. You're talking about the moment that you hit the shot to go to the Sweet 16, not necessarily that whole team. So try to remember that's what you're after. And one other note, Trace, in the 2003 NFL draft, when Leftwich went number 7 overall, Carson Palmer was the number 1 pick. So just a little fact check. Just a little fact check.
I totally forgot about that.
No big deal. But guys, again, I can't say enough that this is a great relief for us as we continue to, be without sports. And I'm talking about Trace and Moff and I, to get behind these mics and start doing podcasts and, give you guys a break from the monotony. So we'd like to be able to do these more often as we can. So we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you subscribing to the show. Share it, get more people listening, get more people joining in the fun. Also, one last note before I get out of here. We have our friends over at Barstool Western. We have our friends at Barstool Marshall. Fifth quarter is coming on the scene now, and there's been a fifth quarter Marshall affiliate for a while, and just this week, Western Kentucky has gotten a fifth quarter affiliate. So give them a follow at Fifth Quarter WKU on Twitter. I'm sure they would appreciate it. They're growing the account. They literally just started. They just crossed 100 followers today, so first week over 100. But always nice to have some rivaling affiliate accounts. So welcome to the fray, guys. So until next time, let's get out of here. Steve, take us out.
Wash your damn hands and go Tops.
Trace.
I retweet that and I say, go Herd.
20 seconds. We'll see you next week. It's the Moonshine Throwdown Podcast. Later.